Pro says we are live, so hopefully we'll get an acknowledgement in the chat. This is a special broadcast at a special time, and we are going to try to purchase a Bitcoin live on the show. Let me see here. I'm still not seeing the live stream yet, though, here on my laptop. Let me refresh. Oh, boy. How come I'm not? Oh, there it is. Finally popped up. Finally popped up on the screen. Okay, and then let me okay, we've got Haja in the house live. And let's see here if I can. Okay. All right, you are live. Michael's in the house, okay. And this is a special broadcast. As I mentioned on a couple of my other broadcasts, I had started a bank transfer from my bank to Coinbase on March 19. That was 6 days ago. And here is the transfer confirmation email. $4,000 moving from your linked bank account. And it says that Coinbase, and this is what's important, Coinbase does not charge a fee for this transaction. Okay? So that was the email saying that it was initiated. The movement of the money was initiated. And then today, I got an email. Let me bring that one up. I got an email saying that it has been received. So it has been received. So now it's in my account and it's ready for me to attempt to do the purchase of the Bitcoin. So we're going to do this live on the show, folks. We're going to do this live on the show. We're going to try to purchase a Bitcoin. Get logged into my Coinbase Pro account here. Okay, and there you can see the Pro account coming up. And this is the key. You want to use Coinbase Pro because if you use Coinbase itself to buy the Bitcoin, there are fees associated with it. If I do a limit order here, there is no fee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to buy, and let's say max amount. 4,000 US dollars, and I'm going to do a limit order. And Bitcoin right now is at 39.54. So I'm going to say 39.54.23. It's got to be a little bit lower than what it is now in order to do this. And so place the buy order. Error. Amount must be specified. Oh, I'm sorry. I want max. So it's going to be 1.01 Bitcoin. Okay, you see there, it's going to be a little over a Bitcoin. So that's fine with me. So the idea here was to buy at least one Bitcoin. So we're going to place the buy order. Okay, so here you see down below, the buy order is here, and it's at 39.54.23. So we got to wait. We're on a green, if you see here at the end, we're on a green candle right now. So theoretically, it's going up a little bit right now. We got to wait for it to take a little dip and for this order to be executed. And the reason I'm doing a limit order here as opposed to market, I could do a market order and it would fill right away. But the reason that I'm doing the limit order is there is no fee on a limit order, and I'm a cheapskate, even though the fees aren't that much, even for a market order. But I would rather pay no fee, and that's what I'm trying to demonstrate here. Now, they are saying here, this is interesting, they're saying fee here $6 US Now, they did change their fee structure a little bit. So, it says status rejected on my order. Why is that? Okay, so let's get rid of that. Let's try again here. Maybe I was cutting it too close. Let's see. The value is $39.54 right now, 46. So 39. Let's do this. Let's make it $39.54. Max amount. Place buy order. Okay, so I placed the buy order, and it says rejected. Wild, Wild West, folks. I don't know why they're rejecting my buy order. Maybe I should... Oh, I know. Let's just do it for 1 Bitcoin. Maybe I'm doing too much. Let's do it for 1 Bitcoin even. Maybe you need to have a little bit of slack in there. I don't know. 1 BTC. Let's try that. Place buy order. Okay, now this time it says it's open for 1 Bitcoin even. So we'll see what happens. Does anyone, let's see, we got some comments in here. Rolex is watch to wear and enjoy, not an investment. Yeah, that's correct. You are correct on that one. And let's see here. Blue Shirt Buddha's in the house. He says, wow, hello everyone. Hi Buddha. Anyone know what happened to AC3 in Bangkok? He's missing in action. Well, I hope nothing happened to him. Okay, so we've got this order placed. Its status is open right now. You can see there at the bottom. And so let's see what happens. Filled, okay? You notice right there? It just switched to filled right there. Okay, so this Bitcoin is purchased. So now if I go, if I scroll here, you see now I've got 1 Bitcoin, 1.0099 Bitcoin in my account, and I've got $40 US left. Okay, so just like that, I purchased a Bitcoin, and it looks like the fee was $5.93. So there was a fee. They did change their fee structure a little bit, but still, if you think about it, $5.93, that's not a bad fee, considering there was no fee to move the money from my bank account into Coinbase. So it's not as difficult as some people would think, to purchase a Bitcoin. Now, later on, I'll move this Bitcoin from Coinbase over into my Trezor hardware wallet, because I don't leave Bitcoin on an exchange, even though Coinbase is pretty safe. I mean, it's insured and so forth. It's regulated here in the U.S. It's pretty safe. So I just wanted to show folks, I set this up. We were talking about Bitcoin on another show, and somebody was talking about how do you purchase it and so on and so forth. And I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll move enough to buy 1 Bitcoin into my Coinbase account, and I'll go ahead and buy 1 Bitcoin. It's probably going to go down from here, by the way. So I'm not sure that I would recommend John Q. Public buy Bitcoin at this level. But I don't care because I'm a long-term holder. I'll just hold it long-term. But in any event, I wanted to demonstrate buying a Bitcoin and how it's not terribly difficult to do. So that's what this live stream was all about. And let's see here. We got some comments. Hi, guys. Entertaining, educational television while eating lunch at my desk. Craig is in motion. There you go. And our Wags is in motion, I'm sure, making things happen. That's what he does. And this is my special drink that I have every morning. And now it's into the afternoon, so I'm nursing it along. It's got some chia seeds in there. It's different juices. And I diluted it with some extra H2O after I drank the main juice. Let's see. New topic for me. Interesting. Vincent in the house. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of heavy hitters are starting to get into Bitcoin. Jack Dorsey of Twitter fame and Square and so forth, he's buying Bitcoin every week. I think he said he's buying 15,000 worth of Bitcoin every week. And he's now funding some developers to develop on the platform. So there's a lot of big money starting to get interested in Bitcoin. And it isn't going to take a whole lot of them for this thing to start going crazy because, as I've discussed before on the channel, it's a very limited supply item. There's a very limited number of Bitcoin that you can buy. And so as demand increases, like we saw in late 2017, demand increased. All of a sudden there was some fear of missing out. Everybody thought, Bitcoin was going crazy, and it was. And so everybody started piling on, and you saw the price just went crazy. It went up to almost $20,000 in a relatively short period of time. And so that's what can happen when all of a sudden the herd starts coming and people start piling into this thing because of the very limited supply of Bitcoin that can actually be purchased. The price spikes very quickly. So that's why it's so volatile. So very interesting indeed. Where it goes from here, nobody knows. It's been around for 10 years, though. I wouldn't bet against it at this point. And as you can see, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I just bought another Bitcoin. I'm just piling up Bitcoin is what I'm doing. So I recommend that folks, of course, have no debt whatsoever. I'm not a fan of debt. And that folks be relatively financially secure. And then they can take some high-risk investments like Bitcoin. High risk sometimes equals high return. Sometimes that's the way that works. So not a lot of interest in this. We've only got 11 people watching. So obviously most people are interested in watches as opposed to buying a Bitcoin. But at least I did demonstrate that, which I promised I would do. I demonstrated how you buy a Bitcoin on Coinbase Pro. And I put a link in the description of this video. And by the way, let's take a look at the stunner there. I put a link, it's a little bit crooked, but hey, this was a hasty setup. I put a link in the description of the video where you can go to Coinbase and set up your own account. Once you set up a Coinbase account, the same login and everything works for Coinbase Pro, which the URL is pro.coinbase.com, as you can see here. See that URL, pro.coinbase.com. And that's where you want to add your US dollars. And let me show you how you would do that. Let's see here. So you would go to deposit right here and select the currency type. And let's say I'm going to say US dollars, okay, and then here's a bank account that I have tied to my account. I would put how many dollars I want to move over. Let's say I want to move over another $4,000. I'd say $4,000, and then I would say deposit from bank, okay. Oh, how come it says 3997? $4,000. Okay, so I could say deposit $4,000 from bank, and again, it's going to take about a week for that to happen. It was one day less than a week. It was Tuesday of last week that I did it, and then it got here today. So, yeah, Blue Shirt Buddha's in the house. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? And by the way, I talked to Steve. We're planning a live stream for tomorrow at 5 p.m. for a complete Baselworld wrap-up, his reflections on and impressions of Baselworld tomorrow at 5 p.m. So I haven't scheduled it yet, but that's what we've talked about. And so put that on your schedule for tomorrow at 5 if for anyone that wants to hear from Steve about all his experiences at Baselworld. Let me know in the chat, folks, if you have any other questions about that or about Bitcoin. And otherwise, we will wrap this puppy up. And on my downloads page, again, I have a link in the description. My downloads page on my website. There's a link there that takes you down the page to the Bitcoin section. And so there is a fair amount of information there about Bitcoin for any of you all that want to learn more about it. I would highly recommend that you learn as much as you possibly can about it, because this could be the next big thing. Jody, how long do you plan to hold your Bitcoin? At least until 2028. Bitcoin has what's called the Bitcoin halving every 4 years. Okay, just like elections here in the U.S. happen every 4 years, just like leap years every 4 years. Well, Bitcoin every 4 years has what's called the halving. And that's when, and the next one is in 2020. And that's when the reward for Bitcoin miners processing the transactions and so forth on the network, the reward that they get paid in Bitcoin, that the rate that they're given Bitcoin is cut in half every 4 years. So it'll be a dwindling supply of Bitcoin every 4 years. It's going to literally be cut in half till eventually they'll all will have been distributed, and then there'll be no more produced. So typically, every time we have a halving, the price spikes up because of the limited supply. And so we'll see what happens going up until the next halving, which is in 2020. Folks say around May or June it'll happen. Typically about a year before is when the run-up starts happening, so it could happen this May, this June, something like that. We could have another run-up. And then that's going to happen again in 2024 and again in 2028. So I'm going to keep holding at least until 2028 and possibly beyond that, because it's, I think it's only going to become more and more popular, and the supply has become less and less. So when there's a lot of demand and there's less supply, what do we know about what happens to the value of something? So that's the name of that tune on how long I plan to hold. Craig, I don't understand why it took so long for your funds to be transferred. When we transfer funds, usually happens within 24 to 48 hours. Probably Coinbase is probably sitting on the money for several days to get the float. Probably be my guess. But, again, they didn't charge a fee for the transfer, so that probably makes up for that. But yeah, if you're in a big hurry, that's not the way to do it. But for me, it's not a big deal, because I'm really not buying that much more Bitcoin right now. I mean, if it dips down, if it takes a significant dip down, I'll probably buy some more. But the other nice thing about having that lag time is you don't tend to do things hastily that way. You got a little bit of time to think, and, well, do I really want to buy this? And, so I think there's kind of a good thing to have that cushion in there too. And that might be one of the reasons why they've got that cushion built into there, is to keep people from making hasty decisions. So there are some benefits to that. Let's see. Carlos is in the house. Carlos, you missed it. I just bought a Bitcoin live on the air. I bought one Bitcoin. You can, of course, go back and rewatch it. Make money off the float. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they got to make money somehow. So there are a lot of people that talk trash about Coinbase, but I got to give them credit. They're at least making it relatively easy for people to on-ramp and get some Bitcoin. They're the way my dad bought his first Bitcoin. When I bought my first Bitcoin, Coinbase didn't exist, but it was harder then to get Bitcoin. So they've made it easier, which I think is good, and it's going to get easier all the time. There are a bunch of big players coming into the space that their whole business model and their whole plan is to make it easier for people to acquire Bitcoin. So that's going to happen, and watch out, because there isn't going to be enough supply. There isn't going to be enough for them to buy. So that's going to be the problem. They're going to have a problem finding Bitcoin to buy. And we know what happens when there's not enough supply of something. That's what we know. Let's see. What's the process for selling your Bitcoin? Okay, so it's just the reverse. What I would do, for example, let me go here right now. If I wanted to sell, I've got a little over 1 Bitcoin here right now. I can put a sell order in. So I'm going to say sell, and I'm going to say a limit order. I'm going to say the max amount of Bitcoin, and the price I want to sell it for is, let's say, $4,050. We'll say $4,500. Okay. All right, we'll say that. And we're going to say sell. Wait. Oh, here we go. Place sell order. Okay. So here now I have an open order down here to sell 1.099 Bitcoin for $44.99.85. And that's an open order right now. And so if Bitcoin hits that number, then it'll sell. I mean, it's that easy. And you can move Bitcoin into this account from anywhere. So if you've got Bitcoin in another wallet stored, I can go here and I can say deposit Bitcoin, and I can select Bitcoin right here. And it's going to give me an address here, you see, to send the Bitcoin to. So I would go to my wallet, and I would send it using this address or use this QR code. I could scan this QR code, and then I could send Bitcoin to this address. So by the way, anybody that wants to send me some Bitcoin, just go ahead and shoot this QR code here, and go ahead and feel free to send me whatever Bitcoin you'd like to send me. That would be good. And then once the Bitcoin is in the account, then again, you just place a sell order like this. Now I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to sell it. So I'm going to hit here and it says canceled. So that order is now canceled, and I can remove it from the queue there. Sounds similar to stock exchange trading. Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's an exchange. It be an exchange, and it's not bad. The interface isn't bad. Again, I'm using Coinbase Pro, which is what I would recommend you use. You can do it also on Coinbase, but Coinbase has higher fees. Coinbase is more for consumers, and again, it has more fees. Coinbase Pro is owned by the same company, but it's more for traders that don't want to pay fees, or want to pay very low fees. I'll put it that way. So there's that. Let's see here. What's the commission to buy or sell? Craig, you just entered a sell order with a limit price. Can't sell below your limit price. Okay, so our WAGs, the fees are extremely low. They did change them recently, so it's not zero, but on a limit order, the fees are extremely low. Like we just did $4,000 worth of Bitcoin. I think the fee was $5. So on a market order, the fee is higher. I'm not sure exactly what the fee is on a market order, but it is higher. So maybe you'd pay $20 or something. But the fees are relatively low, I think, for the service that they're providing. I understand that the transactions are the transactions in Coinbase, not the whole BTC market. Yes, we're just looking at the Coinbase exchange here. This is the Coinbase exchange, what's going on Coinbase. Now, there was a recent article. A lot of the exchanges that are overseas, in particular in Asia and so forth, a lot of them have a lot of fake trade volume. It's like they try to pump up their volume to make it look like they're doing something or whatever. So take with a grain of salt a lot of the volume numbers that you see out there. But something like Coinbase, they are regulated here in the U.S., and I think they're pretty above board and pretty accurate. And there is a website you can go to that has pretty accurate, reliable volume numbers if you want to see that sort of thing. But it's the wild, wild west. There are a bunch of scammers out there. So let's see. What are your selling fees? Again, extremely low. If I were to place a sell order, let me place it again. I'm doing a limit order now. And let's say I'm doing the max amount. Excuse me. Switched it here. Okay, the max amount. And let's say I'm selling it at $5,000. Let's pick a number here. I'm selling it at $5,000. The fee, you can see here, would be $7.57 US dollars. Okay, so I would pay $7.57 for that sell order there. See that on the screen? I'm not going to place it, but that's what it would be. So, you know, the fees are pretty low. They used to be zero, but they did change it recently to where they have some fees for a limit order. Limit orders used to be free until recently, but they changed it. And so, again, it's a fee, but it's a relatively affordable. Fake trade volume allows a pump and dump selling scheme. Exactly. Those are the kinds of things that they're trying to do. They're trying to manipulate and so forth. But it's getting harder and harder to manipulate. And as the base of owners broadens, and as there are more people that are holders, long-term holders like myself, then it's going to get even harder to manipulate because the supply is going to start drying up, and it's going to be harder to get the price to dump as the base of owners gets broader. See, when you have a few whales that control most of the Bitcoin, which a few years back that was really the case, you know, a whale could dump a bunch of Bitcoin on an exchange and just really drive the price down very quickly because the volume wasn't that great. And then all of a sudden he's selling, you know, 1,000 Bitcoin or something. I mean, you know, the price plummets. But that's getting harder to do. The price has been pretty stable the last several months, really. It's been in the $3,000 to $4,000 range for months and months here. And for Bitcoin, that's pretty stable. So now, that said, I do think, hodlers, I do think there's going to be a pump at some point. I do think the price might go freaking crazy again, like it did in 2017. And I don't know really what the catalyst is going to be for that. Maybe it'd be something like Twitter starting to allow people to buy Bitcoin and exchange Bitcoin on the Twitter platform because Jack Dorsey is getting involved. Who knows what the next catalyst will be. But see, once it starts and once the fear of missing out, the FOMO kicks in, where everybody starts thinking, uh-oh, I'm going to miss out here. I don't have any Bitcoin. I better get some, right? That's when the price will start going crazy because, again, very limited supply of circulating Bitcoin that people can buy because it's a limited item anyway to start with. And then those of us that are holding with strong hands that aren't selling, like right now, I'll put it this way. If Bitcoin spiked to $50,000, 50,000 US dollars, right? I still wouldn't sell. I'd still be holding. Okay? So some of us have absolute strong hands and are just not going to sell. For me, at least until 2028. And there's a bunch of us, trust me, there's a bunch of us that are holding. And so that makes it harder for buyers to secure Bitcoin. So, all right, I guess that's about it. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Or, by the way, I've got my Bitcoin pen on right here. Again, I'm going to a video shoot later this afternoon, and that's why I did the broadcast now. And plus, I promised I would do it, you know, once I got the money in the account, that I would do it live. And so I figured I'd go ahead and do it and get it out of the way. And I'll just add that Bitcoin to my stash of of Bitcoin in my Trezor wallet. I've actually got 2 different Trezor wallets, and I've got some of my stash with one and some of my stash with another. I want to have all my eggs in one basket. So at some point we can talk about security of your Bitcoin too. I recommend if you have more than 20 Bitcoin, I recommend not keeping it on an exchange, even a reliable exchange like Coinbase. If once you hit 20 Bitcoin, I recommend that you get a hardware wallet. I use a Trezor. I actually use 2 different ones, and I have some Bitcoin on one, some Bitcoin on another, and move it to that Trezor wallet and secure your 24 words that are your seed, that are your private key. Secure those words. You can do it in thirds or you can do half. Half is probably okay, where you have half the words at one location and half the words at another location. Both of those locations being very secure. And so that if somebody breaches one location, they can't get all the words that they need. They need all 24 words. So personal responsibility, that's what it's about with Bitcoin. If you're controlling your own private keys, it's up to you to keep that secure and to be safe with that and to have a plan if something happens to you where your loved ones can get to those keys and do what they need to do. It's all personal responsibility with Bitcoin because there's no 800 number you can call. There's no 1-800 I lost my Bitcoin that you can call and then somebody will swoop down and help you. A technician would tell you that Bitcoin is forming a bottom in a $3,000 range. So if that's the case, it's not going lower in price. I've heard some experts, some folks that claim they're experts, I'll put it that way, say that we're going to get another major sell-off before we really see the bottom, before we put in a bottom, that we're going to have a V-shaped, a big sell down to maybe as low as $1,200, maybe $2,000, but somewhere in that range. It's going to be a V-shape down and then back up, and then from there it's just going to keep going up. That's what some people say. I would love that to happen because I would buy a bunch more. If it gets down to $1,250, that's my back the truck up and just buy a bunch number. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Before today, the last time I bought Bitcoin was at that number, about $1,250. That was the last time I bought a chunk of Bitcoin. Today's the most I've ever paid for Bitcoin today. But this was just a demonstration. Now I'm going to keep this one Bitcoin. I'm going to put it with my stash, but I wouldn't, if I wasn't demonstrating to you guys, I wouldn't be buying at this level. I'll put it that way. I'd wait for another dip. But that dip might not happen, in which case I wouldn't be able to demonstrate this for you. So at least I've been successful and been able to demonstrate this for you. And I've got another Bitcoin. I don't mind having another Bitcoin, even at this price. So that's the way that is. Why not keep it a desktop wallet instead for a low amount? Okay, so one thing you could do is blockchain.com. It used to be blockchain.info, but I think it's blockchain.com. They have a good wallet where you can do it on your phone. You can use their app on the phone. I use an iPhone, and you can export your private keys from that and write down the words, and that is pretty secure. I don't know about a desktop. If somebody got a keylogger on there or something, or some way to get those words. See, the thing about the hardware wallet is the words are never displayed on your... The way it works is it's a separate enclave. You plug it into your USB, and it's a separate enclave. And the way it works, it's very safe. Even if somebody had a keylogger, even if somebody knew everything you were doing on your laptop or your computer, they wouldn't get all the information they need to get your private keys because of the way the hardware wallet is designed. So it's the next level of security over and above any kind of a cell phone based wallet or laptop based wallet or even a paper wallet. It's a step above any of those options. It's called a Trezor. Trezor is the one I use. You can research that. Trezor. But I wouldn't buy one unless you're, like I say, if you get up around 20 Bitcoin, I think that's when you got to really start thinking about securing them. Jody says, thanks for the Bitcoin information. If that's it, if there are no more questions, then let me show you the page I have on my website. Where I have all this. Okay, so if you go to my downloads page, which is CraigShipp.com/downloads, and when you get to CraigShipp.com, you can pull down this More menu and go to Take Control Downloads. And this is a page I have with a bunch of cool inspirational stuff. And you see here it says click here to scroll down to the bottom of the page for Bitcoin. So see, I have a whole section down here about Bitcoin, the honey badger. And it just talks all about Bitcoin. Here's an interview that I had the Bitcoin Meister in June of 2017. He actually came here to my place, and my dad, 90 years old at the time, or just almost 90, I think he turned 90 in September of that year, he interviewed the Bitcoin Meister. And it's a really cool interview. Actually, let me play just a little bit of it here.
We're happy to have the Bitcoin Meister here with us today to tell us about Bitcoins. I'm so interested in them. I'm an old-time investor, and I want to learn more about what Bitcoins is all about. Can you tell us about yourself and what Bitcoins are?
Well, yes, I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister, and I travel around the world talking about Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency. I also have a YouTube channel that I post a new video to every day where I'm spreading the word about Bitcoin. And all Bitcoin is a digital virtual currency that is not controlled by any government.
Oh.
Well, there you go. That's the Bitcoin Meister, Adam Meister. And he actually came back again, and I interviewed him again. And he's probably going to come here pretty soon. He's going to be in town. He's not in town very often. You can see here I've got a bunch of different videos here and different information. He's not going to be here in town very long because he is in motion. Let me tell you something. He travels all over the world constantly talking about Bitcoin. He was an early adopter, and he's, very passionate about Bitcoin. And so that's all he does is travel around and talk about Bitcoin, talk about somebody that's in motion. As a matter of fact, that's where I got that term from, in motion. He says it all the time. He also talks about personal responsibility and he says personal responsibility is the new counterculture. So he's got some really cool sayings. Very unusual guy, unusual lifestyle. He fasts a lot. He runs 10 miles a day or something ridiculous. Yeah, he's pretty bizarre guy, but I like him. So there's that. Thanks for the lunchtime stream. Blue Shirt Buddha in the house. Blue Shirt Buddha. So yeah, I think that will wrap it up for this. We've been on an hour. How time flies. Any other questions at all? And remember, no Cowgirls live show tonight. Sarah's looking at colleges, and so not a show tonight. Hopefully a show next Monday. Tomorrow at 5. Keep in mind a live show with Steve. So he will be giving us a wrap up on the Basel World. Some interesting inside information. He had some meetings with some heavyweights, and he'll probably share some interesting information. Thanks, Craig, for a Bitcoin buy-sell demonstration. You don't see this kind of educational TV anywhere else. This channel is the place to be. positive people in motion making things happen. There you go. Our wags in the house. Can't say it better than that. Carlos says, thank you, Craig. Talk about somebody in motion. He's wearing a Day-Date 40 is my guess. Probably on his wrist right now. A Day-Date 40. So stay tuned. And yeah, we're going to have the Bitcoin Meister, Adam Meister, in the house, hopefully, for another broadcast and another interview. And if you didn't get a chance to watch that other interview, go to that downloads page and watch that interview where my dad interviewed him. It's an interesting interview. And keep in mind, Bitcoin was probably $1,200 then or $1,500 then. And it was funny because they were talking about whether or not it would ever reach $5,000, whether or not it would ever reach $5,000. Then, of course, later that year, it reached almost $20,000. And then, of course, it came back down to earth, which is what happens every time Bitcoin has a spike like that. It always retraces back down, but generally speaking, it doesn't go back down as the amount it went up. So, in other words, it sets a higher low. And then it goes on and eventually sets a higher high, is what it's been doing for 10 years. So that's the name of that coin, that term. Let's see, Bitcoin and Rolex are fun. There you go. Absolutely. But I would suggest that some of these people that have a ton of steel Rolexes, I would suggest that while the market is hot right now, that they liquidate a couple of those surplus watches and buy themselves a couple of Bitcoin. And I don't give financial advice, but I would do that. I think that would be a good move, an absolute good move. By the way, Marshall Peter has been asking about the Citizen watches, and are we going to talk about Citizen watches? And we absolutely will, because Steve also handles Citizen, so at some point we're going to be talking about them. And I don't think it's for me, but I think definitely for some people it definitely would be. And he's talking about a few that are really trim. Here's one that's 10.5 millimeters. And here's one 12.5 millimeters. Let's look at this one that's 10.5 mils thick and see what the deal is on this. Let's see here. Oh, they're talking about the history and showing a pocket watch, huh? Good-looking watch. You can't argue that it's not a good-looking watch. I still think I give Grand Seiko the nod, personally, but these are more affordable, more affordable option. That is a good-looking watch. You got to admit that. And they say they have the Zaratsu polishing on it. Well, that's interesting. So I think it's something that we should talk about. I think it's something to talk about. Absolutely, especially if they're thinner. Of course, you're not going to find the spring drive in these puppies. But it's food for thought. Food for thought. Let's see here. Thank you, Craig. This is Year of the Pig, means accumulation. Bit Shining in the house, bringing us up to date. It's the Year of the Pig. I just accumulated another Bitcoin. And do you know, just to give you one more stat before we wrap up, do you know that there are 36 million millionaires in the world? Something like that. And a lot of experts say that there's only going to be about 15 million Bitcoin in circulation once all is said and done. 21 million will be created, but a lot of them, millions of them, have been lost. And once you lose access to your Bitcoin, that's it. It's out of circulation. So if you lose your private key and can't access your Bitcoin, that's it. Nobody else can access it either. So a lot of experts say that when all is said and done, there's only going to be about 15 million Bitcoin in circulation. So that means that if there's 36 million millionaires, that means that even a millionaire, the typical millionaire, cannot afford to buy one Bitcoin. One Bitcoin. That shows you how scarce this asset is. And remember, this is a worldwide asset. So it's going to be interesting to watch this whole thing play out. We live in very interesting times. That is for sure. So the next 10 years, I think, is going to be pretty exciting gameplay here to see how this all plays out. So I think we're going to wrap it up with that. Make sure that you click subscribe on this channel, and make sure that you click the little bell so that you'll get a little notification. And I think we'll have another show at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening. It should be a real interesting show with Steve. Craig, what backup do you have in place for a beneficiary to access your accounts if something unexpectedly happens to you? Okay, so of course I have a will for all my normal assets. As far as Bitcoin goes, if I had any Bitcoin, which I'm going to say right now that I actually have lost all my Bitcoin. I have no access to any of my Bitcoin. I forgot my private key, and that happens. So I'm a statistic. I'm the guy that lost all the Bitcoins. But if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I had any Bitcoin, then I would make sure that my loved one who is in my will, that is inheriting my other assets, I would make sure that that loved one knows how to access the private keys and knows how to gain access to the Bitcoin. Now, obviously, you would only do that with someone that you absolutely trust, right? So if you don't have anybody that you trust, then I guess the Bitcoin would die with you, right? So again, that's why there are going to be a lot of Bitcoin that are not in circulation, that are lost forever. If somebody dies and they didn't convey that information to somebody else, it is not like any other asset. There's nobody you can call, right? You can't call 1-800-BITCOIN and say, hey, Craig died and I'm the executor of his estate and I think he had Bitcoin, but we don't have the private keys and we don't have any way of accessing the Bitcoin. Can you give me the private keys? There's nobody you can call and do that. So it's a horse of a different color. A house, gold bullion that's in a safety deposit box, any bank accounts, all these things, you can get court orders. You can, you're the executive of the state. You can get paperwork, and it might take a while. I have to hire a lawyer, but you can get the assets, right? You can get control of the assets. Not with Bitcoin. If you don't have the private keys, you're out of luck. Okay? You got nothing. So that's the deal here, folks, that you got to realize this is a horse of a different color. And the benefit to that is that some nefarious individual, an ex-wife, an ex-girlfriend, somebody that sues you over something ridiculous, none of these entities can get your Bitcoin either. So it's called unconfiscatable. All right, that's one of the key benefits of Bitcoin, is it's unconfiscatable. All these other asset types that you have, the government can come in, or some other entity can come in and take those assets from you. They're confiscatable. They can take them. Bitcoin, unless you voluntarily give them your private keys, which then they're not confiscating it, right? You're giving it to them, right? Unless you voluntarily give it to them, they are out of luck. They can't get it. And that is that, in the fact that they can't manipulate it, that the government can't dilute the value of it by printing more like they do with money. These are the key aspects of Bitcoin. The fact that it's totally portable, it can be sent anywhere around the world within seconds. Nobody can stop that from happening. Nobody can confiscate it. These are the benefits of Bitcoin. You have your own personal sovereignty as far as your money, your store of value, your assets. You're your own personal sovereign. Okay, that's a big difference between Bitcoin and any other asset class, if you ask me. Big difference. So I hope that answers the question, Wags. I think we're done here. Again, subscribe, click the little bell, and we'll do it again at some point. That's what we'll do. We'll do it again. And not a bunch of trolls in here today. That's the good news. I'm going to wrap this puppy up. Thanks again, everybody, for watching.